The US Senate has acquitted President Donald Trump on both impeachment charges. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro responded to Trump's attacks. And tensions grow between Syria and Turkey as Erdogan demands the withdrawal of Syrian troops from the border area. From the headquarters of Telesur English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm Katrina Goss. The US Senate has acquitted President Donald Trump on both charges in his impeachment trial. Trump was found not guilty of the first charge of abuse of power, with 52 votes against and 48 in favour. On the second impeachment article on obstruction of justice, the Senate voted 53 to 47 to acquit Trump. This Wednesday's vote puts an end to a 4-month trial in which senators debated whether Trump abused the power of his office to pressure Ukraine to investigate former Vice President Joe Biden and then took unconstitutional steps to cover up his moves. And in the context of the impeachment vote, Utah Senator Mitt Romney voted to convict President Donald Trump on one of the 2 impeachment charges. This makes him the first senator ever to vote to remove a president of his own party. Romney said he believed Trump was guilty of an appalling abuse of public trust when he pressured Ukraine's leaders to investigate his potential presidential rival, Joe Biden.
What he did was not perfect. No. It was a flagrant assault on our electoral rights, our national security, and our fundamental values. Corrupting an election to keep oneself in office is perhaps the most abusive and destructive violation of one's oath of office that I can imagine.
And Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro this Wednesday responded to Trump's attacks on Venezuela as expressed in his State of the Union address on Tuesday.
My message to Donald Trump is, Donald Trump, you will not be able to beat Venezuela. Venezuela cannot be crushed or broken by anybody. Venezuela has the right to peace, to development towards the future, to work, to recovery. Venezuela has the right, according to institutional legality, to form its own institutions. And in Venezuela, the President of the Republic is not appointed by the President of the United States, but chosen by the people of Venezuela in a popular vote. It has always been so, and this will always be the case. And I am legitimately elected President in accordance with the Constitution. Mr. Donald Trump, enough of your sick obsession with Venezuela.
On Tuesday, Donald Trump delivered his 3rd State of the Union address before Congress. Trump bragged about the great American comeback, claiming a strong economy despite the tax cuts which directly benefit the richest and harm the poorest sectors of US society. He praised the bipartisan renegotiation of the North American Free Trade Agreement with Mexico and Canada, which was the focus of several controversies initiated by Trump himself. Trump's State of the Union address ended without a single mention of the impeachment, marking a moment of restraint from the unpredictable president. And right after Trump delivered his State of the Union address, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi appeared to rip up the paper copy of the president's speech. Pelosi noted in a tweet that Trump's address represented a manifesto of mistruths and should serve as a call to action. Earlier in the evening, the US president appeared to dodge an attempted handshake from Pelosi, who told reporters that ripping up Trump's speech was a courteous thing to do, considering the alternatives. Likewise, several senators also criticized Trump's speech. Democrat Bernie Sanders pointed to the absence of references to climate change, while 2 senators walked out of Congress during the address on Tuesday, noting they couldn't stand to listen to the president's lies. And the Cuban government provided a timely response to Trump's State of the Union address, as the US president mentioned the island alongside attacks on Venezuela and Nicaragua. Foreign Minister Bruno Rodriguez said that if President Trump wants to support the Cuban people, he would lift the genocidal blockade, resume the banned flights and grant visas to Cubans. He should re-establish US citizens' freedom to travel to Cuba. And Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov will conduct a Latin American tour for 3 days and will visit Cuba, Mexico and Venezuela. Lavrov's meeting with his Cuban counterpart, Bruno Rodriguez, will take part in the eastern city of Santiago de Cuba. Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova said recently that the coercive measures adopted by the United States against Cuba to tighten the 60-year-old blockade will be among the issues to be discussed during the bilateral talks. In Venezuela, Lavrov will meet Maduro, as well as Executive Vice President Delcy Rodriguez and Foreign Minister Jorge Arriaza. They will hold talks about cooperation in energy, mining, transport, agriculture and defense, according to the Russian Foreign Ministry. And we're going to take a break now, but coming up, Argentina's Senate has approved a law on the restoration of the sustainability of the country's public debt. Don't go away. Welcome back. Argentina's Senate on Wednesday approved the law on the restoration of the sustainability of public debt, which will allow the national government to advance in the renegotiation of its commitments to foreign creditors. The law was approved unanimously by all 65 senators present, and the government thanked the opposition for its support. The Argentinian government has been working to renegotiate payment of the debt racked up by the previous administration with the International Monetary Fund. President Alberto Fernandez has stressed that his government will not accept the imposition of structural adjustment programs in exchange for a delay in its payments to the IMF. And Argentinian President Alberto Fernandez was received by his French counterpart Emmanuel Macron on Wednesday as he concluded his European tour aimed at gaining support for the renegotiation of Argentina's foreign debt. Fernandez previously visited the Vatican, Italy, Germany and Spain, where he was assured of support from their leaders for his efforts to tackle Argentina's economic crisis. President Macron also expressed his support to his Argentinian peer in the negotiations on the payment of the country's huge foreign debt.
France will stand by your side and will be working alongside the International Monetary Fund and other partners to help Argentina return to the path of sustainable debt growth. Your country's economic situation is, of course, a matter of concern and commitment for us, and we have always supported efforts to stabilize your economy by integrating it into the international financial community, and we will continue to do so.
And in turn, the Argentinian president thanked France for its support in the negotiations with the IMF, stressing it is very important to resolve the debt issue.
I am very happy that before anything, before our meeting, you already expressed your support for us regarding the International Monetary Fund. It is very important to us to sort out our debt issue, which is a vital factor for growth in Argentina, and the International Monetary Fund needs to hear and listen to our proposition.
Mexican President Manuel Lopez Obrador enjoyed an approval rating of 71% in January, according to a poll. Regarding the Mexican economy, public opinion was 45% positive. Migration policy also saw a rise in support for the president, including the use of the National Guard to stop the flow of Central American migrants at the southern border. The poll was conducted among 820 Mexicans in mid-January. In El Salvador, local communities along the country's main river, El Lempa, blame the sugarcane industry for the country's worsening water crisis. They demand the government introduce stricter regulations regarding industrial water use.
Its 2018-2020 plan, the sugarcane industry in El Salvador seeks to produce about 1.7 million tons of sugar. While sugarcane is one of the most important industries in Central America, the crop requires an excessive amount of irrigation. In El Salvador, one of the country's biggest rivers, El Lempa, serves as an important water source for the industry. But such a high demand for water, combined with the several hydroelectric dams along the river and the effects of climate change, can heavily affect local communities.
We are in the month of February, and we can already see that it's drying up. And if we look over the riverside, we can see a number of water pumps that are siphoning away the water.
Communities in the center and the south of the country have long fought both the sugarcane industry and the government to defend their lands and the water. They heavily criticize the government for allowing various industries to use the water for their liking, and they call for stricter regulations.
Currently, private companies are free to use water in our country. That's why we are calling on the government authorities, such as the Environment Ministry, the Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock, as well as the National Assembly, to approve a water protection law, which has been proposed by various organizations.
Another issue is the burning of the sugarcane fields. a practice used for facilitating the harvest. But communities say it has serious consequences on the environment. We are seeing, once again, the unregulated burning of fields. We have been condemning this practice for more than 10 years in Bajo Lempa, and now we want to send a clear message to the national and international community, to all the environmental committees. We urge you all to ask the government of El Salvador to put an end to the burning of sugar fields and their aerial fumigation. And such practices of the sugarcane industry don't only damage the environment, but also pose a risk to the health of local communities.
The contamination of the water and the air pollution can cause serious illnesses like diarrhea, respiratory diseases, and not only in my home, but also across nearby communities that are located near sugarcane fields.
The top destinations for Salvadorian sugar are China, the United States, and Canada. The income from exports in 2018 was around $722 million, a profit that local communities along the River Lempa do not see.
Haitian nationals living in Venezuela have rallied outside their country's embassy in Caracas against President Jovenel Moïse's decision to join the coup-mongering Lima group. The protesters say it is regrettable that their government has chosen to join the US-led group that is working to undermine Venezuela's peace, stability and solidarity. Moïse's decision came as the Caribbean nation is facing one of the worst political, economic and social crises of its recent history. Nationwide protests calling for the president's resignation have rocked the country for more than 1 year. Jamaica's Prime Minister has instructed police to take action against anyone preventing the Ministry of Health's dengue fever eradication drive.
The right to block, deter, or harm a public officer doing the public's work. I'm Minister of Health, and I'm saying to the Commissioner of Police and the police officers who are here, we must enforce the laws very strongly on this matter, because it is not in the public's interest for someone in their private yard to be breeding mosquitoes. And when you come to talk to them, they tell you, you can't come in my yard and you can't tell me what to do about this. That can't work. And in fact, the public health law gives the right to the public health officer to enter your premises and take action if you are having breeding sites. And I'm saying to the minister and to the police, we have to enforce this law.
St Kitts and Nevis is preparing for elections on February 28th, while regional pollsters are at odds over who will be victorious. The Barbados-based Caribbean Development Research Services predicts that the ruling Team Unity political alliance will win the elections, securing a second term for Prime Minister Dr. Timothy Harris. However, the Jamaica-based Johnson Survey Research Limited, which predicted the St Kitts and Nevis Labour Party's defeat in 2015, now predicts that this party will finish with a lead of 7 seats. This would see Dr. Denzil Douglas return to power after being in the post for 20 years from 1995 to 2015. The famed and highly acclaimed Barbadian poet Edward Camille Braithwaite passed away at the age of 89 on Tuesday. Camille was known as one of the godfathers of modern Caribbean literature. He also conceptualized Creole identity, a predominantly Afrocentric theory drawing on the majority African heritage of the Caribbean peoples. Prime Minister Mia Mottley described Camille as easily one of the titans of post-colonial literature and the arts. His death leaves novelist George Lamming as the sole surviving Barbadian contributor to post-war Caribbean English literature. In Ecuador, workers at Radio Pichincha are still waiting on a decision by a provincial court on whether they will be taken off the air. The government of Lenin Moreno argued that the radio station had promoted instability by reporting on the massive anti-government protests in October. Social organizations say this is an attack on freedom of speech.
The new attempt to silence Radio Pichincha in Ecuador is still without a final ruling by the courts. The decision by the Communication Regulatory Agency to appeal the protection order by the radio keeps its workers worried about their jobs.
We are waiting to see what will happen. If we will have to close our station, depending on the decision by the judges. It is also a decision affecting 46 people that were on Radio Pichincha.
Due to this new attack against the radio, there has been a strong criticism against the government, and even international organizations have condemned it.
We have the support of citizens, international organizations, digital media, and even the Inter-American Commission of Human Rights. We receive support every day.
Several human rights defenders and organizations are warning that the acts by the government are a clear violation of rights and attempts to attack freedom of expression.
Last year, the government signed the Chapultepec Declaration, and by it, it said it won't act against freedom of expression, and we are now seeing how the government is violating that right. What they say does not match what they do.
Weeks ago, the Communication Regulatory Agency announced the end of the radio's permit to broadcast and ordered an intervention on it. The agency claimed the radio had committed a crime against national security. In 2019, the agency made 3 attempts to close Radio Pichincha, to which a judge issued a protection order against the radio.
And we're taking one last break, but stay with us for more on the growing tensions between Turkey and Syria. Don't go away. Welcome back. Syria's anti-aircraft defense system has intercepted several enemy missiles that were targeting Damascus, the capital, local agency SANA reported. Previously, President Recep Tayyip Erdogan said that Damascus must withdraw its troops from Turkey's positions in Idlib or face retaliation. Erdogan demanded the Syrian government withdraw its troops by the end of the month. The Turkish president said his troops would force Damascus to retreat if not, deploying the army and warplanes if necessary. Several Turkish military personnel were killed when a convoy was hit by Syrian artillery fire as Ankara moved its troops into Syria without prior notice. The incident triggered a retaliatory bombardment of Syrian army positions. A plane carrying 177 people skidded off the runway when landing at an Istanbul airport, splitting it into 3 before catching fire, according to local news reports. Turkish authorities have reported 1 person dead and 157 injured in the accident. The plane was apparently buffeted by strong winds and heavy rain lashing Istanbul. According to City Governor Ali Khamenei, at the moment 120 people who were injured have been hospitalized. The airport was shut down and flights were being diverted to Istanbul's main airport, according to officials. China has urged international health agencies and authorities to implement stricter measures to contain the novel coronavirus. President Xi Jinping called for more effective screening methods, stricter quarantine rules and better patient care. Meanwhile, Wuhan City, the epicenter of the outbreak, remains on lockdown. The construction of the second emergency hospital there is set to conclude soon. According to Chinese health authorities, the novel coronavirus has so far killed 564 people, and over 24,500 people are infected in mainland China. At the same time, the mortality rate has settled at around 2% of known cases, a far lower number than at the beginning of the outbreak, according to World Health Organization authorities. The Director General of the World Health Organization has asked for $675 million to help countries address the expected spread of the virus that emerged in China. Tedros Ghebreyesus acknowledged that the sum is a lot, but stressed that it is much less than the bill we will face if we do not invest in preparedness now. The WHO Director General reported that in the last 24 hours, the UN Health Agency has seen the biggest jump in cases since the start of the epidemic.
Our message to the international community is invest today or pay more later. Invest today or pay more later. $675 million is a lot of money, but it's much less than the bill we will face if we do not invest in preparedness now during the window of opportunity that we have. We will have the after-action review. And we have scientists who will really understand, investigate that, and tell us the truth. Now, as global community, please, let's focus on the actions we can take today to prevent this outbreak from spreading all over the world.
A Chinese baby has been diagnosed with coronavirus just 30 hours after a woman who had tested positive for the deadly disease gave birth in Wuhan, according to state media. Doctors at the Wuhan Children's Hospital on Wednesday cited the case as evidence that pregnant women infected with the virus may be able to pass it on to their unborn children. The infant, who was born Sunday, is the youngest person recorded as being infected with the new coronavirus. Around 3,700 people are facing at least 2 weeks confined on a cruise liner anchored off the coast of Japan, after health officials confirmed on Wednesday that 10 people on the ship had tested positive for coronavirus. While the infected patients were transferred by Japan's Coast Guard to hospitals on the mainland, the rest of the passengers and crew on board the Carnival Corporation ship were placed in quarantine and subject to health screenings. The 10 confirmed cases were among the results received so far from almost 300 people tested. The ship was caught up in the global coronavirus epidemic after an 80-year-old Hong Kong man tested positive for the virus after disembarking in Hong Kong on January 25th. Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has condemned US President Donald Trump's so-called Middle East peace plan, which has been widely rejected by Palestinians and those who support their cause.
The American plot of the deal of the century will die before Trump dies. I believe this plan is 1, stupid, 2, a sign of viciousness, and 3, has been detrimental to them since day one.
Tens of thousands of people across Pakistan are today observing Kashmir Solidarity Day in support of the Kashmiri people's struggle for their right to self-determination. Mass rallies, peace walks, conventions and meetings are being held across the country to draw global attention to the plight of the Kashmiri people. This is the first time the day has been observed after India unilaterally revoked the special status of occupied Kashmir in August last year. And we've come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. For Telesur English, I'm Katrina Goss. Thank you for watching.